Good evening, Irish fans, and welcome back to another edition of the The Irish Fan Podcast. My name is Danny, where I'm not an Irish fan. I am the Irish fan. Thank you so much for joining in tonight. Well, on a Wednesday night, look, your boy has got life going on. I've got a family. I'm a father. And that's why I haven't been on so much the last couple of weeks. But hey, it is playoff season. It is playoff time. This podcasting thing is no joke. It's kicking my butt. Being a full-time father and husband, being a full-time worker, but I'm here nonetheless for you and mostly for me, making content so we can talk Notre Dame football here, and we did it. We did it. We're going to talk Notre Dame in the playoff against IU, but before we do, please like, share, comment, subscribe so that algorithm can get up because I'm only on YouTube right now. And will be for foreseeable future, but, until I expand my horizons, this is where you can find me. So please click the notification bell also on the side so that you know every single time I post a video. And it could be anything. I could be going to the game. Maybe. Probably not. But you never know. I might get a call and be like, hey, Danny, I need you. Let's go to the game. And I might be like, hell yeah, I'm there. But in the event that I'm not, we're going to be talking through the playoffs, all throughout the playoffs, and I'm even going to record and talk with the Notre Dame wins or loses because I love college football, and we're just going to keep that ball rolling. So, without any further ado, we made the playoff. A goal accomplished of making the playoff. 30,000 foot view, that's the kind of podcast this is. We accomplished what we set out. We accomplished one of our goals that we set out at the beginning of the season. We had that week 2 snafu, a big one that shouldn't have happened, one that should never happen under any coaching regime at any time for Notre Dame football. But nevertheless, it did. And here's the thing, the best thing that could have happened after that did happen. Not only did we make the playoff, but we are also hosting a home game. Now, there's going to be a lot of people saying that we don't deserve it, that Notre Dame lost to NIU. Why should we be hosting a bowl game? Or why should we be hosting a playoff game? Why should we be in the playoff at all? Look, in this beautiful game of college football that we love, always has been and always will be, and I've said this a million times on this podcast, a game of perception. There's always this perception that some teams deserve to be in there and some teams don't. Take Texas, for example. There's a perception that they're a really good team, right? Why? They have no top 25 wins. I bet you didn't know that. Because you listen to a bunch of people that tell you Texas is a really good team, and then you regurgitate that stuff back. Now, no knock on Texas. They're a very good team. They're very good. They might be your national champion. Who knows? I don't know. But they have no ranked wins at the end of the season. Notre Dame has at least one. We have at least one. Yeah, it's Army, but we don't pick and choose who are ranked and who isn't. The College Football Playoff Committee does. And they decided that Army is one of the best teams, or one of the top 25 teams in the country. And we beat them. Actually, we smoked them. So, look, we beat all the teams on our schedule, and we spanked the boots off of them, too. I think our average margin of victory was over 35 points. And that includes ranked teams. Louisville was ranked at the time. By the way, they smoked Clemson, who is your ACC champion. We beat Louisville. We have plenty of good wins. We have 7 wins versus bowl eligible teams. I don't care what you say. Notre Dame wins the games in front of them, and I'm going to get to the whole conference thing. Well, you guys don't play a conference. You don't deserve to. I'm going to get to that. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about just kind of this season, how it flew by, for one, but how it went by, and the game to game. I mean, we really were in a playoff. We were in playoff mode ever since we lost in week 2. We really were. I mean, you lose one more game, you're out. Definitely, you probably get a lot of players transfer mid-season because they want to try and preserve that red shirt. I mean, you had players do that anyway, like Jade Mickey. But it was a constant slog of a schedule, of a season with a flawed football team. And look, Notre Dame, For as much as I love them and for as much as I think they deserve to be in the playoff, they are. They're a flawed football team. One of the reasons why I feel good about them being in the playoff is because name me a perfect football team in the college football playoff. Exactly. You can't do it because there are none. Look at the aforementioned teams one of the aforementioned teams I just mentioned, Texas. They got smoked twice by Georgia. Georgia got smoked by Ole Miss. They almost in what is that? 8 overtimes to Georgia Tech. They had to beat Georgia Tech in 8 overtime. I mean, there's just a ton of flawed football teams in this playoff. Even Oregon, who's ranked number 1 and undefeated. The path that they took to get here. They beat Boise State by 3 points. They only beat, I think, Idaho State or Idaho by 10 points. I mean, there's flawed football teams all over the place. Penn State, you name it. Ohio State, Tennessee. They're all flawed. They all have a reason. Every single fan that is not a fan of those teams can go to those teams and those fans and say, you guys don't deserve to be there. So, again, what I'm going to get into about the college football playoff overall and it not being a true playoff and it being an invitational, I'm going to get to that. But the season, it went exactly how we wanted it to go. It did. Some negative kind of connotations to it was we really don't have the offense that we were promised at the beginning of the season when Riley Leonard came into the transfer portal almost a year ago to the day. We were all excited. I was excited that Riley Leonard was going to finally be that quarterback to come in and be able to run a dynamic offense that's going to average around 40 points a game. And we're going to have our defense that we've always had in the last 10 years. That's really been kept. That has really kept us in competition with college football playoffs in the past. And combining that, we are not just a college football playoff contending team, but a national championship contending team, which is the entire goal of this podcast. And the only reason why I'm doing this is to be a little tiny part of Notre Dame getting back to where they belong, a national champion, not just a participant in a college football playoff. We've already been there. We've been there twice. Brian Kelly took us there. We had 10-win, 11-win, 12-win seasons all over the place. We have a couple wins over top ranked teams, and we've kind of been to the upper echelon, the highest that Notre Dame can possibly get because we're not in a conference. The highest that we could possibly have gotten in the last 10 years. We just haven't had that national championship. So we're there, being able to compete. Each game was just going into the game. It was a constant thought of you can't lose this game. Not only because you weren't going to make the playoff if you lost, but it was you can't lose to NIU and fill in the blank with whatever team. You can't. Your 2 losses can't be NIU and Georgia Tech, NIU and Army, NIU and Navy. It just we had that blemish, and it's never going to go away. That's going to stick with this team, no matter what. Even if we win the national championship, people will always that might be one of the first things I think Reese Davis will say when he hands the national title trophy over to Marcus Freeman if and when Notre Dame wins the national title. He's going to say, "So when you lost to NIU, blah 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 blah." I guarantee it. Take that to the bank, bet on that, bet your life savings. If Notre Dame wins the national championship, it's exactly what will happen. Not going to say that we don't deserve that, because we do. Again, it's a blemish, and we're always going to have it. But it was just every single game after that was you lost to NIU, so you can't lose this game. And this team resiliently pulled through. Each game there was something. This person wasn't on, so that person stepped up, and this side of the defense wasn't the secondary wasn't on, so the linebacker stepped up, or the defense wasn't on, so the offense stepped up, and the offense wasn't on, so the defense. So every single spot in the Notre Dame rotation was covered by another spot, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the mark of a truly good team, possibly, dare I say, great team. So going forward, hey, redemption. Welcome to redemption. You made the playoff. You're hosting a game. That's what I wanted. That's what most of us Notre Dame fans wanted. So we got it. Who we got? The IU, Indiana University Hoosiers. Look, I love the Hoosiers. I actually do. I live in Indiana. I went to when it was called IUPUI in downtown Indianapolis in my youth. I spent a lot of time at IU Bloomington. Have a ton of friends that went there and graduated there. And I have a huge. I love IU basketball. I'm an IU basketball fan. When that starts going off, and that's a whole other conversation. IU basketball, but so this is a bittersweet thing for me. I really wanted Alabama. I wanted to play Bama. I wanted Alabama to come up in the 25-degree weather and play in South Bend. I really, really wanted to see Jalen Miro freezing his butt off, wanting to go home. But alas, that's not going to happen. We got IU. They're good. Look, they're a good team. Any Notre Dame fan out there thinking that we should walk all over them like we did an Army, don't expect that. I don't. They have a really good passing attack. They are really really tough. I think they got caught in one of those a conundrum when they went to Ohio State. They got caught and lost in the moment because they've never been in that moment, and maybe Notre Dame will get lucky and they'll feel this. It'll be the same way. They've never been to Notre Dame State. None of these guys have ever been to Notre Dame Stadium. Most of them have never dreamed they'd ever play in Notre Dame Stadium. And maybe they'll get lost in the moment, and they'll float a couple. Work will throw a couple interceptions to Xavier Watts and Christian Gray again for pick sixes in the fourth quarter. Who knows? But it's going to be a really tight game. I think it's going to be a battle. It's going to be cold. So expect our running backs, our offensive line, linebackers to step up. We're going to need them. We're going to need toughness. We're going to need the depth that have just been eating us alive as a football team. I mean, I've got this sitting in front of me, a list of all of our injuries. I really can't believe this. I've been a Notre Dame football fan for the better part of my life. I'm 42 years old. I've been watching since I was 8 years old. And I don't know that I've ever seen not just the Notre Dame football team, but a football team this banged up. I mean, out for the season, backup running back, backup wide receiver, starting center, starting left tackle, starting Viper, backup Viper, backup defensive tackle, backup linebacker, backup cornerback, starting cornerback, backup cornerback. I mean, and those are out for the seasons. And a lot of those happen within the first 3 games of the year. And this is one of the things this is a real testament to the fortitude and the toughness of this team, man. I mean, these guys have been. Benjamin Morrison goes down, and then you got Leonard Moore just step up and play brilliant football, right? Just right in his place. Oh, Ben, I got you. I'll be brilliant. And I'm going to knock down every pass that comes my way. I mean, he was really, during when we played USC a couple weeks ago, he was really the shining star of that game. Obviously the accolades will go to Xavier Watts and Christian Gray for those pick sixes, but I think he only had one really long pass. It wasn't even a long pass. I think it was like 15 yards. One pass completed against everything else was being knocked down, or it was just covered and he had it locked. He had it locked down. I mean, that's. The resilience of this football team has been really, really impressive. It's a shame that we've needed it, though. I mean, guys, these are guys. So I just named, or I didn't name them, but I showed you a list of guys who are out for the season. The guys who have at least missed 2 games, Devin Ford, Jordan Faison, Jaden Thomas, Cooper Flanagan, Davis Sherwood, Sam Pendleton, Billy Schrouth, Josh Burnham, Howard Cross, Gabe Rubio, Kingston Viliamuasa, Mitch Jeter, which is a whole nother conversation. I mean, it has really, really been tough. I've never seen anything like it. And earlier on in the middle of the season, I was listening to a podcast and the guy giving the podcast was like, I think we'll be okay as long as we don't have any more injuries. It just what injury is it going to be where you just can't sustain it? What injury are we going to have to where it's gonna now you're gonna have to put a person in that position that's not their position. The guy's playing out of position. We haven't quite had that yet, but we got really close with Howard Cross getting hurt in the last couple of games. He missed the USC game and he missed the Virginia game. But good news. One of the reasons why I'm talking about this is Howard Cross is going to be ready for the IU game. That's really good news. Jason Onye, I guess he's gone. He didn't get hurt, but I think after the 6th game of the year, he was gone, personal reasons, out, not coming back. And that's all we were told, personal reasons. And hey, you're a Notre Dame fan and you don't get to know everything, okay? So that really sucks. But again, we've just been really resilient. We've had guys just be that 5th guy, or be that next man in, and that title of this team, next man in, has really shown through, and it's been really impressive. So we should be relatively, considering everything that's happened, we should be relatively healthy going into the game. Jeremiah Love tweaked his knee in the USC game. They kept him out the rest of that game. He had already had like 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. I mean, so it wasn't like a huge deal that he didn't go back in, other than to see him completely shred the USC defense, which was just, it was just what he did when he jumped over that cornerback was just, it should be illegal in 7 states. It was just amazing. He cleared that guy with several inches to spare. It was amazing. But he will be healthy and full go for the IU game as well. That's very good news, because I have a feeling that in this playoff, in however many games we're able to play, we're going to really need our offense to be on its A game. That's concerning because there has not been a game this season where they've really put it all together. There's been games where they've been pretty good. Well, Danny, they beat Purdue 66-7. Purdue's one of the worst teams in the country, if not the worst team in the country. And not only are they that bad, they were coached really bad. One of the reasons why we had 66 points is because they thought it was a good idea to start their only safety that they really have 30 yards off the ball. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But they have not been, the offense has not been on really this year. So that's kind of concerning. We're going to need Riley Leonard to step up. We're going to need Riley Leonard to earn that money that we gave him. We're going to need him to be that guy that we wanted him to be when we started the season. Okay, we've got a whole season now. We've got a whole season of record. You need to put it together. You need to make those passes. You need to have confidence in your offensive line. You need to have confidence in your wide receivers. You need to have confidence in yourself. No double moves unless it's planned. If you see an open guy, you throw that ball. Consequences be damned. Obviously, don't throw any horrible interceptions like you did against USC or NIU. But be confident. Be confident in yourself. Be confident in your team. Back him up. Wide receivers, catch the dang ball. Running backs, be patient. Find your holes. Out of everyone on our football team, the people that I have the most confidence in, that I think are going to be completely fine, are our running backs. So that's that. But we need our offense to show up, and that means we need Riley Leonard to show up. We have to have him throwing accurately. We have to have him leading the team, and he's healthy. He's healthy. He'll be fine. Most of our offense will also be healthy, at least the offense that we've had this entire season. There should be cohesion at this point. There should be, everyone should. It's basically a second season. We should have guys knowing the playbook. There shouldn't be anything like that. Okay, this is full go. This is championship time. This is big boy time. Put your big boy pants on, lace up your cleats, get out there, put your head right here, and use this and play hard. Yeah. Right out of Rudy, huh? But that's really gonna be all for the game. I've got nothing really else to say. We did what we had to do. We got IU. We have to beat them. That's another thing. Like every single game is that you have to win this game. I mean, you can't have IU have this Cinderella season, and they're in the same state as you. They're recruiting the same kids as you, and they have this Cinderella season, and you're the team that they beat to keep this season going. You just can't have that. You can't have that. You have to beat this team. Now, if you win and you go to and we play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl and in Louisiana, that's a whole different conversation. I don't want that. Obviously, we'll get there when we get there, but you can't have that. I mean, you can't have IU beating you. Georgia would be understandable, and I think anyone would be okay. Fine, good season. I mean, again, the goal here is to win a national title. So I want to beat Georgia. I want to beat the dog out of Georgia. Don't get me wrong, but it would be at least a little bit more understandable than losing to IU. So beat IU. Go Irish. Beat Hoosiers. Never thought I'd be saying that for a playoff game, but here we are. So that's that. I really, really want to talk about the college football playoffs. So this has been absolutely delicious to hear other fans' complaints, to see what has been going on within the realm of college football and how chaotic it has gotten. Look, I gave a podcast earlier in the season about Notre Dame being a conference. I mention this quite often because people won't leave me alone about it. But it's been so relevant to this season and specifically this first expanded college football playoff. Because at the beginning of the season, Notre Dame fans, myself included, we got a lot of flack by not being in a conference, and then the consequence of not being in a conference was we don't get a first round bye, and that we'd have to play 4 games in a row after the end of the season, where if you won your conference championship game, then you get that first round bye, and that first round bye was this coveted thing, and man, you got to go straight from the season and right into the playoff. And what's ended up happening? Look, Notre Dame's played USC on November 30th. We're not going to play IU until the 20th, until December 20th, Friday night. That's almost 3 weeks. It's like we had plenty of time. Actually, that's right on the border of having too much time. You don't want too much time off, because you want to stay somewhat in sync. You want to get healthy, and you want to recharge the batteries, and maybe go home and eat some food and get healthy and all that stuff. But you don't want too much time off. I mean, that's perfect. 3 weeks off. I mean, yeah. I will say this. I will give any of those people that said that or still think that, I will say this: an extra game, yeah, it's a game of consequence. You got to play a good team, so you could always get your starting quarterback hurt or starting running back hurt. That extra game, and you can lose. You could lose the game. So that is something of consequence, and then having to do that 4 times in a row is hard. I do agree with that. But I always made the contention, and I would come right back with those people. Playing 4 games, that's tough. But you know what's even harder? Playing 5. And guess what happened on good old championship Saturday? Well, Clemson upsets SMU. They're the ACC champion. Guess what they don't have? A first round bye. That was just beautiful. That was hilarious to me. The dominoes that fell on Championship Saturday led a lot of different fan bases to go, well, you know what? These conference championship games aren't all what they're cracked up to be, because you have I always thought that I thought the Power Four was always going to get the benefit of the doubt, and they were going to be the ones that were going to get that first round bye, and it was going to be whatever that group of 5 champion was that's highest ranked, they were going to be the conference champion that ends up needing to play the 4 games in a row. Well, it didn't work out that way because Boise State had this awesome season and they only lost to the number one team in the country, Oregon, by 3 points. So they remained ranked really high the whole season. So because they are the higher ranked team, they're the ones that actually gets the first round bye. And Clemson had a not so great year, or not, well, by Clemson standards at least, had 3 losses. They were ranked lower. So they were the ACC Power 4 champion that has to play 4 games. And that doesn't include their conference championship game that they had to play. I don't think they got anybody hurt. But I always made the contention. Playing 5 games is worse. That sucks. And I always thought that was going to be the loser of the game. So like SMU or Texas. That's what I thought. Or Penn State. But you have an ACC champion who's got to do that for. So what's the incentive? Everyone, if you are a person who hates Notre Dame because they're not in a conference, tell me why it is more beneficial to us to be in a conference when we could get railroaded just like Clemson did. I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee would ever do that to a Big Ten champion. I don't think I certainly wouldn't do that to an SEC champion. But the fact that they did it at all, and the fact that it was Clemson of all teams, makes it that much sweeter. And it just confirms what I was talking about earlier on in the season that much more. And it confirms that podcast that I gave earlier on in the season that much more, of Notre Dame joining a conference, which, by the way, I'm going to get to. And I said it in that podcast. I do believe one day they will join a conference because they will be forced to. So, I have a buddy that I work with. He's a huge Alabama fan. Jason, if you're listening, I love you, buddy. And we were just talking about all this chaos and all this madness, and he agreed, like, they would never do that to an SEC champion. But the fact that you would have an Alabama or a Georgia or a Tennessee or a Texas playing not only in that championship game, but 4 games after that, man, I mean, you talk about tough sledding. You talk about a tough schedule. I will give that. Like, I will give that to SEC fans. You have the tougher schedules. You do. And not all conferences are created equal, which is one of the reasons why I've always been not such a big proponent of joining a conference. Because if you're going to join one, if Notre Dame was going to join one, I'd want it to be the best. And we would probably end up joining the Big Ten. I don't want to rehash all that. I don't want to get into that. But I just want to bring to the forefront, I want to bring to everyone's attention just how ridiculous a lot of these conversations are. Just how ridiculous it can be when this whole conference thing. I mean, I heard people saying that we needed to get rid of the conference championship games. And by the way, I do agree with that. I think the games need to go. I think it's just an extra stupid game. You can still have your conference champion and you can still seed it that way. And this year it would have been Texas. They only lost 1 SEC game. But again, it's one of those things. Not all conferences are created equally. Not all schedules are created equally. And so you have this deserve versus a strength of schedule argument. You either the college football playoff committee came down to this big conundrum. You either value the conference champion or you value strength of schedule. The conference or the strength of schedule. And they chose the conference. They booted Alabama out because they clearly had a stronger record or stronger strength of schedule than SMU, certainly. But SMU played in the title game, and the committee was always they were already prepared. We're not going to punish any of these teams for playing in the conference title game. If they made the conference title game, they pretty much told them you're in unless you were Clemson, who was on the outside looking in. You know, a team like that, maybe squeak into the title game because of some tiebreakers. And you win that game, you go to the playoff. But otherwise, if you lost, you would have been out. But SMU, who won their games and was 11-1 at the end of the season, they're still considered one of the 12 best teams. And the playoff committee had to do that because they couldn't devalue the conferences. They couldn't do it. I just love seeing that. I loved seeing that parity. I loved seeing the playoff committee forced to make a decision like this, because I have this stupid conversation has always been forefront in my face for my entire life as I've been a Notre Dame fan. Why aren't you in a conference? Why aren't you in a conference? Well, there's a lot of reasons now why Notre Dame shouldn't be in a conference, at least now. And a lot of reasons why they haven't been over the years, because there's no incentive. Because teams that join conferences usually go backwards. Nebraska, Penn State, even though Penn State had a really good year this year. But nonetheless, so it's caused a lot of people to talk about what are some of the solutions here. Every single year from here until it truly is something figured out, until it is a wins-based style of playoff, like the NFL and like all the professional sports. If you want to go to the playoff, you got to win a certain amount of games. That's how you go to the playoff. Not by a college football playoff committee who selects who they want to be in the playoff. It is a selection committee that picks this playoff, and it is an invitational. It is not a true playoff. So I've already done some homework, and I have gone through some of the different varying scenarios. Well, look, the committee is they're gonna expand it at least 14 teams, if not 16 teams in just 2 years. So this 12-team thing, it's gonna happen this year. It'll happen next year, and then by the time we reach 2026, it's probably gonna be a 14 or 16-team playoff. So if they are willing to do that, if they're willing to expand it that much, just expand it to a 64-team playoff. How do you do that? You have 8 divisions in 2 super conferences, which is, by the way, I've said this in my previous podcast, where we're going, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a diehard Big 12 fan, I've got news for you. The Big 12 is going to go bye-bye. And the only 2 conferences left are going to be the Big 10 and the SEC in some form. They may not be called the SEC. It may not be called the Big 10, because they're going to become 2 super conferences. And what's going to happen is these 2 super conferences are going to create divisions. 8 specifically. 8-team divisions. That's 64 teams per conference. If you want to go to the playoff, you win your division. And then you play off those 16 teams, and the winners of the conferences meet for the national championship, just like the NFL. I believe the 1AA, the FCS has been doing this, has had something like this for decades. This has been an easy solution. Why has college football not done that, and why haven't they done it now? The answer is simple: because of money. Because it has not been able to evolve to that level yet. They still have these TV shows where you listen to 80-year-old geriatric men cry and debate about who the best teams in the country are, and they need those ratings and those eyeballs to make money. It's as simple as that. Eventually, the cry is going to get too loud, and the conferences are going to get too big, and they are going to gobble up every other valuable team in the country and create the 2 super conferences. Now, there's a little bit of a dilemma here. That means you're going to have to create essentially a 3rd division, because in Division I football, you have 2. You have the FBS, or the football bowl subdivision, and you have the FCS, the football championship subdivision. FCS is, those are your 1AA schools. Schools like Colgate or Villanova. They're actually really good in basketball. They won a basketball national title. In basketball and baseball and every other sport, you have all 300 Division I football teams, or 300 Division I sports teams. Football is the only one with these subdivisions, with these classes. You got 2. It's going to split to 3. Who is going to make that 3? So if you include the ACC, 17 teams, Big 12, 16 teams, Big 10, 18 teams, the SEC, 16 teams, and Notre Dame, you have 68 teams. So you could do a couple of things. You could create another division in one of these conferences, and then just have something like a first round bye. You could leave out some of these less valuable teams that are in the FBS, schools like, I don't know, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF. I mean, even, I don't want to call these teams blue bloods, but they're obviously more recognizable universities: Stanford, Maryland, Northwestern, Rutgers, Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State. I mean, this is part of the problem with college football is in the NFL, it's not about the number of teams and how you play them off. That's not what it's about. You can play off 120 teams if you wanted to in football. You'd have to work some things around, that's for sure, and definitely restructure some contracts. But it's not about the amount of teams. That's never been the problem. It's always been about which teams are created equally. You can't sit here and tell me that UCF is the same kind of program as Alabama. You can't tell me that Maryland is the same kind of program as Penn State. You cannot sit here and tell me that Rutgers is the same as Ohio State. They're not. They're not the same. They're not even close. As a matter of fact, those comparable programs probably double or triple revenues when you're talking about sports in general, just athletics, let alone the football programs. And so you've got a lot of these lesser schools with donors who don't give as much and whose administrations don't pay as much attention to their football team as they do probably other programs, that are getting the same kind of revenues, or at least the same kind of billing, as the schools at the top of their conferences. It's a system bound to fail. It's going to fail. It's just a matter of time. So again, what do? The only solutions here is the one I just gave you. I think you create the 2 super conferences, but then you also, if you want to do revenue sharing and stuff like that, then you've got to put these other I'm just going to say it, substandard schools, at least athletically substandard schools, you need to put them in their own division. And you got to have, or you completely split them up, and they're in a division with, Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and Tennessee. And if they really, really want to win, then they've got to invest, and you kind of have to force their hand. This is where it's all going. This is where it's all headed. Everyone in this college football playoff thing is not sure. They don't know. It's a complaint game right now. So-and-so deserves to be in over so-and-so. Look, it's not about deserve. And it never has been. It never has been. Because college football is a game of perception. It always has been, and it always will be until you win and you get in standard, like the NFL, happens. And that's not going to happen until there are teams willing to produce the same amount of revenue as some of these other big schools. And you might have to force their hand. You might have to force Maryland to stay in their own division with the group of 5. You might have to force Rutgers to do that, because if they can't do it, or if they won't do it, then it's not a level playing field, and you're always going to have this strength of schedule argument that you have every single year. Well, so and so won their division because they play in the same division as Stanford, Maryland, and Northwestern. It's going to go away, and it has to, and honestly, it will, because that's what everyone wants. Everyone wants that piece of the pie. I think the Marylands, Northwesterns, Rutgers, Oregon States, Washington States of the world, I think they want it too. Who doesn't like money? This is the real kicker. This is the big wrench. A lot of these schools have, let's just say they have political standing. And it's not very politically popular at a lot of these schools with a lot of their faculties and their political connections to be all out for the almighty dollar, if you catch my drift. there's not a lot of people who necessarily want that for their universities, who want to make more money, or at least if they do make money, they want all of that money to go towards their academics and not their athletics, because they don't believe in athletics. This is a very, very touchy subject, and it always is when you're dealing with millions and billions of dollars, which a lot of these universities, that's their endowment. Like Notre Dame's endowment's like 3.5 bill. I think Texas has the biggest one with like $8 billion. And again, until you see some of these schools starting to invest into their athletics, you're never going to see that kind of expansion that you really want to see, at least to the point where it's as fair as the NFL, where you may not have there are certain franchises that are more valuable than others, but the playing field is the same. You have a cap, you're willing to hit that cap or not, depending on whoever your owner is, depending on whoever your general manager is. But the rules for revenue sharing and all that stuff, it's all the same. Right now in college football, it's just not all the same, because you have super teams like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, and these other schools aren't able to compete, and so you keep getting into this deserve thing. So I think that's all going to go away. I just thought that was a really cool, funny conversation that I've been having with guys and certain fans over the last couple of days, ever since the football playoff rankings, the final ones came out. And it's been really interesting to see some of the reactions. So that's going to be that. That'll be the show for tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I'm gonna record. I'll probably record a really quick show next week, previewing the IU Notre Dame matchup, and it'll probably be a short video, something like 10 minutes, if that, and then off to the races. So until then, I will see you next time. Once again, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell on your way out the door if you're still listening. I appreciate you. I love you. Go Irish.